7 o'clock, and I would like to call the Planning Commission meeting on April 17th to order. You want to hit it? There we go. Now it's official. If you could call the roll, please.
Mr. Shipley?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. And I am David Post, and I am here. I am present. We rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Us too.
I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So I would like to welcome back a few and welcome brand new Ed Hogler. He is going to be joining us on the Planning Commission. Ed is around in the community a lot. You're familiar with Mavis Winkles. That's Ed, and Ed is a member of the Rotary. We're on the Rotary together, and Ed is working his way into becoming more and more involved. And we were excited when he applied, and we thought he'd be a great fit here in the Planning Commission. And so with that, let me make you official as well as both of you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you guys stand, raise your right hand, and then I'm going to say aye, and then after I say state your name, you can all state your name individually. We can do this all together at one time if you're okay with that.
Fair enough.
Fair enough. All right. I state your name.
Steve Hogler.
Mark Cohen.
Do hereby swear
Do hereby swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the United States of America,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Ohio,
the Charter, ordinances, and resolutions
the Charter, ordinances, and resolutions
of the City of Twinsburg, Ohio,
of the City of Twinsburg, Ohio,
and will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
and will faithfully, honestly, and impartially
discharge the duties as a member of the Planning Commission
discharge the duties as a member of the Planning Commission
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
as I shall answer to God.
As
as I shall answer to God.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. Well done. Well done. All right, so now that we are back to a full crew of 5, we need to elect a chairman and a vice chairman for 2023 for the Planning Commission here. Is there anyone who would like to nominate anyone for the position of chairman of the Planning Commission?
I'll nominate Mark Cohen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So
He can motion it, I'll second it.
Steve makes the motion. Michael Walker seconds. Any discussion?
Question.
All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Shebeck?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Hogler?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
All right, well, now that
Very
we
good.
have,
That was gonna be harsh if you said
congratulations.
no.
That was, again, I was very nervous about all that.
Thank you. Could have just done by acclamation since nobody else was running. That's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. Let's
It's
make
nice
it.
to hear the support.
It is, absolutely. So now that we have a chairperson, I will turn it over to you, and you can do nominations for a vice chair.
So do we have any nominations for vice chairman for Planning Commission for this year?
I'll nominate Steve Schieber.
Any other nominations? Roll call?
Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Stay.
Mr. Hogler?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Shebeck?
Yes.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Steve, and welcome back.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Did anybody second the motion? I'm curious. When you made a motion?
No, actually, no one actually did officially do that.
So someone want to second that motion for
I
the,
think it's all right, you don't have
Is that okay?
objections.
Do you not-
Yeah, there were no, well, normally when there's only one person running, we usually have given it by acclamation and not have to do a vote because there's only one person running.
right.
So it
But I don't
really,
know if you're going to do a,
Roberts would allow it.
we're good? I didn't know if you
We're
actually had a
good.
motion and roll call if you need a second. or not.
yeah, probably should have done that, but we're not used to it. Usually it's 1 and 1 and we're done. So
Gotcha. Okay.
my apologies to
That's all
Mr.
right.
Roberts.
He'd be cool with you.
You'd be all right with it? Good deal. So we now need to do another roll call, please.
Mr. Hogler,
Here.
Mr. Cohen,
Present.
Mr. Shebeck.
Present.
Okay.
Oh, the three new people
Yeah.
are here with the old
Right.
two people. Okay, it's perfect. Well, thank you for putting up with our administrative portion of this
Right.
evening. Thank you.
Seemed like we knew what we were doing. Yeah.
So the first item this evening in the work session is zoning text amendment, Chapter 117405D and 119505D5L, which are the guidelines for the driveway access construction. Lynn, you're handling this one.
So there's been just minor controversy with residential driveways, people wanting to widen or redesign them sort of post-construction. With that said, there's some inconsistencies in the couple sections of the current regulations that dictate, in particular, driveway apron width, and this action looks to make the language consistent and to just sort of clarify a little bit more clearly how a driveway can be designed.
Seems pretty straightforward for the things that are marked up and changed on here. Steve, any comments or questions?
No, I have none.
Ed, any comments or questions?
These were for people wanting to do some changes to their current plan that existing?
Exactly.
Is that, okay, all right.
So a lot of times you'll have the flare at the roadway and a narrowing of the driveway as it's approaching the house, and then sometimes it widens back out. The thought is to keep the widening out part outside of the right-of-way. So if the city does work in the right-of-way, we're not replacing that extra width of pavement in the right-of-way. It's also seen sort of as an aesthetic issue. When you fill that in all the way, it's kind of unattractive as it approaches the sidewalk at that wider width and then fills in the apron flare. So this more or less requires the design of the driveway to sort of follow the pattern that we require when the house is built. It allows for widening, just not sort of filling in
All the way down.
all the way down to the road or to the sidewalk.
Anything else, Ed?
No.
Craig?
No, I have no comments.
Michael?
No, sir.
David?
Good, thank you.
All right, Lynn, this one looked pretty straightforward, so we'll knock it out in the regular meeting. Second item is the zoning and text amendment, the request for child daycare as a conditionally permitted use in the C5 mixed-use business district. If the applicant who's proposing would like to come forward, your name and address, and any information on this that you'd like to share.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Francis Gardner. I am the general counsel for GV Land Holdings. My address is 3885 Oberlin Avenue, Lorraine, Ohio, 44053. Our company has brought forth this request for amendment to the text of the zoning code so as to allow a child daycare center as a conditional use within the C5 district. The background for this is that, we own this property on East Aurora Road, and it's the frontage along East Aurora Road for our campus, which is the Grand Village retirement community. So we have been interested in marketing and selling the land that fronts on East Aurora Road, and we've had considerable amount of interest, and lately especially, we've had 2 offers to purchase, but they are both from developers who want to build child care centers. That's the background. Obviously, we've discovered at the very beginning that the zoning was not permitted, would not permit that use. So basically, so that we might be able to continue with the sale of our property, we're just seeking that the zoning code text be amended to allow, as a conditional use, the child care center in that particular C5 district. I would note that it is allowed as a conditional use, as you know, in C1, C3, and C4. We believe that this conditional use is consistent with the city's plan for the development of that gateway corridor coming in on East Aurora Road. We believe that it's consistent with the intent of the plan as it currently exists for the city. We've also noted that there's a need for this for your citizens. What we did was do a little bit of a survey to find out whether or not is there a need for more child care center and child care centers within the city. And actually, there really seems to be, because everyone that we surveyed, which was, I think, was everyone in the city, they're all full. They have waiting lists. And, as you know, the city is growing. You have more families, so they have more need for childcare during the day. And so we think it's an appropriate use as a conditional use in the district. And so we've made the request to get the text of the zoning code amended. And I'd be happy to entertain any questions if you have any of us.
Thank you. First of all, while this is a district-wide
We understand
request, not specific to any site,
Correct.
curious as to which parcel is being considered to the east or west of the Grand Village entrance drive.
It is to the east.
So it's the smaller.
It's a 1.73 acre. It's actually, I believe there are 2 sublots, but it's 1.73 acres.
Oh, it's
total.
the two parcels that are to the
Correct.
to the
Yeah.
east. Ah, okay,
Those are the ones that end in 26 and 82?
correct. Okay. So my feelings on this is, again, the request for the rezoning is not site-specific, it's for the whole district.
Yes.
And while I think that it is possible that that site could be developed within the intent of what we're trying to do in the C5, it would surely, it's going to require some agreement with the people developing it and Grand Village, and I'll get back to what those types of items are. That are C5 is really, we're trying to make it a pedestrian-oriented district.
I understand that.
And the idea is really no parking in front of the building, trying to keep the buildings closer to the street if possible.
Yeah.
And if this would make it through the steps, which is, our recommendation, city council deciding that it's worth it to pursue it, putting it on the ballot and getting it approved, then coming back under the conditions, I think no curb cut, no new curb cut for this location off of 82. We want to have an easement, in my opinion, from the entrance drive into Grand Village to
That's
get.
actually what we figured too. I mean, I know this isn't going to be my problem.
Of course.
But I think in the conversations that we will have with the interested parties, we have one developer that we really are serious about working with. And I think we would be telling them right up front about that. In other words, they're the ones who are going to have to apply to get this approved, whatever their plan is. We understand that. But, from our perspective, I think we anticipate that someone's going to want an easement off of our driveway, or that roadway is, in order to have the egress and ingress that way instead of off of Aurora Road,
Right.
which wouldn't make any sense.
Well, especially also because if there's nothing in the front, no parking, we prefer not that new
Right.
curb cut. And I know that it affects, depending on how they're designing it,
Right.
parking, bus traffic for after-school care, drop-off and pickup. There's a lot involved, and it would almost be beneficial to have a letter or have that representative here to say that they understand what it is that would be required if this went through, so that we're not spinning wheels on your behalf, their behalf, or the city's behalf. my concern in all this and bringing this up is that, well, again, with these types of things implemented, I think it could work on this site. I don't think that child daycare facilities is a good idea throughout the C5 district, because there are locations in really the heart of the downtown that I don't see how this would work or how it could function, and hopefully to the point where an applicant wouldn't be interested in applying because it doesn't work for them.
Sure.
But once we open that door, we have to deal with what we have to deal with.
And I understand the whole, goal of making that district pedestrian friendly, and yet having businesses like this, move in and to the district. And I think, this works a little bit better out where it is, closer to toward the freeway, as opposed to in the center of the district, which you'd want to be pedestrian friendly.
And I agree. That's why I think that if this was site specific, it would make it a lot easier, because I think that this site with those criteria, it could work.
Sure.
But since it's the whole district, it opens up other potential issues that we have to take into consideration.
Sure, I understand that.
So we'll go see what other comments we might have. Steve, anything for this?
I agree with your comments as far as district-wide. And yes, there is going to be some challenges just because of traffic and, not being, it's going to have to be accessed off that drive, which is still going to create some traffic, because typically the traffic flow into Grand Village is light at best, because most of the people there are permanent residents.
They're not driving.
Assisted living and skilled care, but you do have some of the apartment area, but typically they're not, those seniors aren't traveling a lot. So.
It's visitors, family members.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there is a need, yes. Does it fit in C5? I don't know.
Yep. Anything else?
No.
Ed?
No, the one question I had, and I think it did address it, was they anticipated the hours of traffic to be similar to typical business before and after. Is that what I was?
Boy,
It wouldn't be late evening.
not for a child daycare center,
Right,
I wouldn't
okay.
expect. No. I would expect it to be shorter hours than, I would be morning drop off, afternoon pickup,
But they
what I
wouldn't market this property for any sort of after-hours meeting places or anything like that?
Oh, gosh, I would not think so.
Okay.
The developer with whom we are negotiating is a national developer and has these schools, that have been very successful in various locales around the country. So I think they kind of have their act together and know how to put it together. But again, it's a chicken and egg thing. I mean, I don't know that much about their development plan, because we don't have a signed contract, and they won't sign a contract.
Without knowing.
It has a contingency, but
Right.
they aren't going to
Would.
sign a contract if they know that they're not going to get anywhere with zoning. I mean, so, we agreed to do this to try to move this forward, recognizing that, yes, it's a district-wide decision, but approaching it as a conditional use rather than a permitted use gives the planning commission and city council a little more, obviously, it gives you more control over each person who might apply for that kind of a conditional use permit.
Agree.
The only other question I had when I was reading it, besides the, just logistical parts and, the building, but a need, but then also affordability. I don't know, when you have that discussion on price points or anything for the city, for the people using it.
Yeah.
Is this high end, low end, middle? I mean, where are we looking at something like this?
Yeah, that
Seems like
usually-
they're all high end, yeah.
It's all high end.
Right.
Yeah, I would guess if it's a national franchise,
Yeah,
that it would
this
be on
is-
the higher end.
It's definitely a high end. From what we've seen of things they've done, the way they've approached it, it's a very reputable and legitimate operation.
Anything else, Ed? Greg?
So the conditional use would force them to put parking behind the building, right? Is that, can that be in here?
Well, it would allow us some leeway in dictating
When they-
certain criteria that we think makes sense, that works within what the C5 district is trying to accomplish. And that's why my suggestion was trying to find out from the app, or the people they're dealing with, if they'd be willing to come in and discuss those with us, or at least put something in writing that they're willing to accept those types of things, because those are the conditions we're going to put on, if that's what we agree to.
Yeah.
So that we're not going through this whole process and then have them come in and find out, well, there's no way they can operate that way.
Yeah. I mean, I think obviously going against that would not be, I would not approve of in a C5 district to make, if they wanted to have parking in front, I would not support that, obviously.
Yeah, no, I agree as well.
You know, I mean, I guess given that you can give access versus in the driveway to the Grand Village, that kind of makes me feel a lot better about this particular location.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's what we're contemplating, but I mean, I don't know exactly what their design thought is, but I would like to think that if they have been looking in Twinsburg for, I think a while, that was been represented to us, and they're not the only ones that have come to us. I think they all get the idea that, trying to have ingress or egress right on directly onto Aurora Road, especially with little kids, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense from a safety standpoint either. Plus, I mean, that would just add a lot of, I think, additional congestion.
Yeah. It also leads to the idea, though, even if they were amicable and agree that it makes sense to do the curb, to come off of the existing driveway into Grand Village, they may still in their mind think that they could have a curb cut in the front and in the back off of it. I mean, I know besides all those things, there's still outdoor play area that's mandated by the
Right.
state. So, I mean, that's why I keep leaning to this idea of further discussions with them. But Michael, any comments or questions?
Got a few. Lynn, did you do the calls that were at the end of the work up here, or your team?
We did some calls, but the ones that you have in front of you were provided by the applicant.
Oh, these were by the applicant. Yes.
I know, I find them to be accurate though, based on
Sure.
my own research.
Sorry?
I just didn't hear his question to Lynn, that's all. 'Cause it's-
If you look at the end of the report, Councilman Post, there are little blocks with different daycares where
Yes,
they called
saw
in
that.
interview. I wanted to figure out who did it, whether it was Lynn or the applicant.
Oh, got it, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. This is a question for all. Is my understanding, these are the elements that I would base my vote on. Does the proposed zoning amendment further comprehensive planning goals and objectives in accordance with basic intent? Can it be justified by changing conditions? Is that fair?
Essentially, yes.
Help me understand a little bit more about what the idea for the C5 and pedestrianizing it and making it a more walkable. I don't have as much history or background as some of you gentlemen, so.
Well, Lynn, you want to start off with
So
that?
the C5 is a mixed-use residence business district. But most of the businesses that are listed as permitted uses are retail or service. There really aren't, and with that said, there really aren't any real child-oriented type businesses promoted in the district. I'll just say that. I've had some requests for, say, a dance studio, child daycare, sort of other children's lessons like martial arts kind of things. And we've had all of those uses in the C5 district, but when we created this new mixed-use residence business district, those were removed. So the C5 district really looked towards promoting this sort of more entertainment, restaurant, bar, resident-heavy district by not allowing anything else. So, right or wrong, that was the vision. Okay, we're going to force the issue of sort of creating an opportunity to get some residential development around the square hoping that those residents would support these more desirable uses, or seen as desirable by the entire community. Oh, people always want more restaurants. We want to have sort of a destination area to go on a summer evening or a Saturday night. And so by eliminating almost all other uses than these restaurants, bars, retail, and residential uses, it was hoped that we would see some movement. So I don't know that it hasn't. The dream has not come true. So in terms of one of the conditions being have conditions changed so that we would find the addition of this use a reasonable choice? Well, maybe. Things have changed. Things have changed since COVID. Things have changed just workforce generally speaking. So I think you could argue that things have changed. And, while we haven't seen the downtown develop as everyone had wished it would, I don't know that omitting those uses from the C5 was less about them being undesirable and more about forcing the issue of the uses that we really wanted to see, if that makes sense.
Guiding
Exactly.
trajectory instead of
Yeah.
So,
right. So in the case of the child daycare, maybe it is a suitable use for the C5 district, even given the walkable nature, if you're going to add residences to the central area. But there's a limited area, so it's always been that. Well, we got to save spaces for the uses we really want to see. But again, maybe that time has come and gone. Today, I think it's more about the form of the development on this site that is proposed and on other sites. It's more about the form than the use.
I've learned a lot of that from being here the last year. So
that's the quandary we're in.
if we vote to recommend and it goes on ballot, the end result from this, putting on a mix of my old lawyer hat and just being the ignorant hick that I am, the end result is this will be another condition that could be considered, because as it stands now, they can't apply, or whoever
Exactly.
can't apply for anything because it's not even in the.
It's not even a
maybe
choice.
list.
Correct.
So the end result is this puts it in a maybe list.
Yeah. Another thought being child daycare is permitted in every other commercial district and in every industrial district. It's not like we've not provided other districts where this use could go.
What are the downsides of having this as a condition? And I know I'm looking at you, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
but
well,
I'm just, it's for everybody.
I can give you my opinion on it is that it's not site specific,
Right.
that it's district wide, and that, well, again, I think this site could work well if it's designed within the restrictions that would be, I think, work within the C5 district. Somebody buys a piece of land on 91, in the heart down there, and that's where they want to put it, and now they're like, well, you've made it a conditional use. You can't really stop us from doing it. You can just put conditions on it, and the conditions have to be reasonable, and we don't think your conditions are reasonable, so therefore, let's pursue legal action.
So you kind of have a concern about a floodgate perspective of it.
Yeah, because there is a need for it,
Right.
no doubt, and I think, it could work at that location, but we're opening the door for potential other issues and how much, how much say we have to continue to restrict and force them to follow guidelines.
Side trajectory.
Yeah,
We don't force, we're not big bad
That's right.
government,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
yeah. Recommend and try to help develop within what we think are the good constraints for the community.
So the potential applicants with the child care facility could have potentially come to make an application for, well, they would have to go, were they to go to BZBA to get that, or what's, you're saying about it being site specific? This is where I'm really getting in.
They would apply for a conditional use permit.
Right.
They would say, we would like to have this use, this child daycare use, And typically with that initial request for the use permit, you would see a concept plan. We would hold a public hearing. Planning Commission would make a recommendation, and then that would move on to City Council for confirmation or not. After that point, once you had a conditional use permit for the child daycare use at a site-specific location, then you would come back with a more formal site plan.
Okay, Mr. GC, you're still practicing law. I prosecuted people and did divorces. All right, so why was that vector not approached, doing a conditional use permit application?
Well, because there was not even a conditional use was not even possible.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Currently, the way the code is written, it is not a
It's not a
conditional
conditional
use.
or permitted use.
Or
in
permitted.
this-
It's definitely not permitted use.
In this
and It's
district.
not even a conditional use in this district. So we are requesting to get it, the revision or the amendment to the code to allow for a conditional use, so that therefore anyone, as you've been discussing, who wants to do a project, child daycare, will come to you and request
Right.
a conditional use permit, and you'll lay out what all the conditions are.
Not in the C5.
Right. So they couldn't have even come here to put something in C5 no matter what?
Correct.
Correct, without doing this.
And
stuff
our
first.
concern potentially is that if we agree, and it's got to be voted upon in the first place.
Correct.
There's going to be a floodgate on the worst end of the spectrum, Twinsburg, downtown Twinsburg, which, let's be honest, we haven't had movement on what we envisioned, is going to be an epicenter of child care facilities. It may not be what we want.
Playing the
I'm
extreme.
trying to weigh it and
Yeah.
get educated on this.
I think the sticking point is the conceptual plan for the downtown development. Some areas, it would be not a good fit because you have to have outdoor play area.
Right.
And it's like going to the playground at the school. I mean, kids are kids and they're going to make noise, and that might
Yeah.
not be particularly desirable to the people who's sitting on the patio at the coffee shop next door.
But that can either be programmed into, to some degree, what's before the voters and or in conditions that we impose as a commission, correct?
I think it would be the latter.
It would be the latter, yeah.
But it's difficult to do in some layouts of conceptual design, I should say.
Get it, but what I'm asking then, Mr. Shebeck, is you can't even get to ask this
No.
because we don't even have it as a condition.
Correct.
That makes it easy on us. Makes it impossible for the applicant.
So the easy illustration is imagine a child daycare center in Pinecrest in Orange.
Okay.
I mean, that's, sort of
We ain't there yet.
not so much Pinecrest, but I guess Legacy or whatever, where they
So-
mixed use.
Right.
And I didn't realize Stowe had such a nice mixed use development until I drove down 91. I haven't been down that way in a while, and I was like, wow, they've got the commercial residential thing going on where the school used to be. So I think that's the fear, is that if it's allowed as a conditional use, all you can do is put conditions on it. You can't say, no, you can't do that.
Right, so on the flip side, okay, here's a different scenario. So there's also been requests for a child daycare facility on Creekside Drive, across from Chipotle, sort of behind,
Arby's by the Brewsters.
behind the Brewsters, the backside of Brewsters. That's a C3 district. That's an interchange business district. Child daycare is conditionally permitted there. It's a small lot because there's a fairly sizable conservation easement along Tinker's Creek. You have that service road behind Brewster's, the dumpsters, the loading and unloading there. I think we're going to see a site plan for a child daycare there. It's a tight fit, but it's a corner lot. These corner lots, like this configuration, tend to work out for the child daycare facility. But in the case of this C3 district, they could put a child daycare there. I don't know that that site is better than this site for that use.
Okay, so here's my final thought. I think I understand and I appreciate everyone in the history. There's a lot of uncertainty about the future on this. I have no problem with supporting it going to the ballot. If we're concerned about fear of litigation, you know me, I don't buy into that at all. You can avoid litigation if you have well-planned mitigation measures. I know you guys have been here a lot longer than me, but you can construct it. On the other hand, I haven't lived here as long as any of you gentlemen. I mean, we've not seen what the vision brings for the C5. You know, the good example of the Legacy Village, and exactly what Commissioner Shebeck's talking about on Stowe. So I trust that if this goes to ballot and it is successful, we will, as a very smart planning commission headed by a very experienced chair and other experienced members and a business owner who operates within this district, will be able to manage applications as they come through. But in the very end, it's like you said, sir, it's chicken and egg right now. This is all perspective, but I also know you wouldn't be here if they weren't really seriously talking about it.
Correct. And you know, we share, and we have a common interest with you, and in terms of wanting this to be, when it's developed appropriately and with care, and you know, because obviously it's a front door to our property, and it's also, you know, it affects our traffic flow. You know, we have a lot of concerns about it as well. We aren't just trying to unload this on anyone because, you know, as I said, it's our front door, and we have a lot of concerns about it. So, you know, I don't think I'm in a position to make a lot of representations for a company that I don't even have a contract with yet. I mean, we're close, but you know, I will take back any message that the Planning Commission wants, and I'll try to facilitate what I can. I just can't represent or promise that they're going to do A, B, and C for you.
Sure.
Mark, can I say something you got to say as well when you're done?
Okay. Well, what I was going to recommend, because I believe, Lynn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there's enough time to get this on the November ballot still if we chose not to make a recommendation tonight and wait to the next meeting. If we ask the applicant to discuss with their prospective purchasers to see if their willingness to implement what some of the conditions would be that we would put in, if commission members are agreeable that we open the door for this use, obviously anywhere besides just this district, and we'll deal with that if we ever have to deal with it, as long as this prospective applicant understands what we're after and is amicable to it.
So there is a lot of talk right now in the city about the downtown development and how it's been stalled, and there are potential things coming up, and there are there are a few of us on council who really have a vision for what we want that downtown to be, walkable, and so there is a lot of conversation. I know it's been stalled for a very long time, but I think there is going to be a lot of conversation coming up about that whole area. So that is coming up as far as that goes. The next question I have is, as long as it has to go to the vote, is it possible to go to the vote to have these two lots rezoned from C5 to a C3 or a C1? As long as you can't change the zoning by the vote, as long as the vote of the people.
Planning Commission wouldn't, and council, it would be hard to support a rezoning there. It would be
Spot zoning?
It would be spot zoning. It's located between other C5 parcels.
Okay, I'm just looking because there's the residential on the one side of it. All right, I was actually just looking here at different. You know, you've got C2 right here next to it. You got C4. You got R7. I mean, it's at the edge of this blue right here, when you've got all these other different zones here. So, you know, it's not like it's right in the middle of C5. It's,
Right.
you know,
It is at the edge.
It's at the edge,
That's what
right.
makes it.
and it's along R7, which is
Right.
yours.
So you're
So
right
it's-
here, it's right here.
Those two parcels there, right?
So
And
we
so
have
you've got
C5,
C2.
C5, C5,
It is,
and
but
R7.
Yeah, so it's not like it's surrounded by C5 all around it. I'm just throwing out ideas, that's all.
If it went to R7 and it was contiguous to this R7, you'd pull it off, but obviously that's not gonna work.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I feel like it's not like right in the heart of the C5, and there's nothing else around it. There are other zoning around it, like this is not like that far. And I don't know, I just don't think it's like this is all C5, like we're just spotting it right in the middle. I think there are others that if you have to go to the vote of the people anyways,
Right.
could you make a vote to? That was just a thought.
And
You cannot, because it actually would be spot zoning.
Okay.
The
Again,
parcels
just throwing
are
out
also
ideas.
small.
right,
They're all small, so and most of them are individually owned. So if you did that, you would start creating just a hodgepodge in there. I don't, it may be with the zoning code update that we envision other commercial districts and the districts sort of start melding. Because let's face it, the difference between the C1 and the C2 and C5 in terms of uses is not that vastly different. Really, in the C5 districts, it truly is more about the form and less about the use. Because if you allow retail in the C2 and you allow retail in the C5, and you allow personal service uses in the C2 and you allow personal service uses in the C5, the only true difference is you also have the residential component in the C5, and it's looking towards that form where the focus is on the sidewalk or the street. But the uses aren't vastly different.
Right.
And form is much more controllable.
that is
Sure,
true.
my guy spent a lot of time living around Williamsburg and Alexandria.
Did you have a
I have a
comment?
question for Lynn. Lynn, following up on the point that Mr. Post made about, I think it was you who made the point about there being time to still make the November ballot, considering we have to go through city council and then get it ready for the board of elections. Is there time to, I mean, I'm asking you, I don't know.
There is, we would need to have 3 readings at council.
Right.
So we'd have 2 in June and 1 in July,
Okay.
or really maybe 1 in May. What is our schedule?
We meet again on May 15th, right?
Right, so we would potentially have an opportunity to have this be read at council at a meeting in May, and then 2 in June.
I mean, what is the feel of commissioners? Would you prefer to have further discussions with, if they're willing, with their applicant who's looking at purchasing the land, or are you comfortable in supporting this with us being able to control it through conditions that we would put on without them knowing about it ahead of time, or are you just not supportive of it at all and having the use? I guess there's a few different ways to look at it. Steve?
Well, my concern is the C5 area as it is now does involve a lot of individual properties. And moving forward with this, your client could select another property because it's in C5.
Well, not if they're under contract with us.
Yeah, but they're not going to sign the contract until the amendment's passed.
Oh, no, that's not true.
Okay.
We have the contract that was provided to us last week after all of our negotiations
Okay.
has a provision in it.
Okay, that's,
It has the contingency in it. In other words,
so, but my point is that, as Mr. Walker said about opening the floodgates, I mean, you alluded to somebody who's looking at some property on Creekside. Well, now
Yeah.
this change comes in. Hey, I'm going to snatch this property up on Darrow Road because
Yeah.
I can go to that property owner, because we were trying to assemble properties to create
Yeah,
retail residential districts.
We see how that's working.
Until we get those assembled, now this just throws another curveball in there, I say.
right, and, and we have our property marketed, and we're going to sell it to someone, and we're trying to do the right thing too, because as I said, we have some skin in this game. You know, do we want to sell it to something that is either permitted use or an already existing conditional use, but yet is like another fast food restaurant or another car wash or another, you know what I mean?
And I understand, and I appreciate all your efforts and your diligence here tonight. But what I'm saying is, you're focused in on this group, but once we put this in, then it opens up for all of
Sure,
C5.
and we understand that.
And somebody can come in and center punch an area in the downtown that we had envisioned for a different application. We can't do anything about it because it's in the code. So I think that's the other side of the coin, so to speak.
Yeah.
The question that I'm thinking about right now is, you identified another opportunity in Creekside. What other opportunities in existing zones that this is permitted would be viable fits? I mean, why do we have to open up a new area if there's possible opportunities in areas that?
So what's happening in the industrial districts is you have sort of some vacancies in buildings that allow for multi-tenants. And because of very specific requirements for child daycares with egress doors in the exterior play area, most of those multi-tenant spaces don't work. Sometimes I've turned away many because once you get to the building code and you realize you start having to bust doors out of the sides of buildings, it just becomes cost prohibitive, or you just simply can't even do it. An end unit seems often like it could work for people. I've seen this happen now 3 or 4 times, and then once the architect gets involved and the costs start skyrocketing, people walk away. So just like we have had the new construction for New Adventures Daycare with Tom Lane in an industrial district. He has that big corner lot. Freestanding building, allows for traffic circulation onto 91 and onto the side road, and has the play yard in the back. Young Explorers on Twin Hills has the parking in the front that allows for the through traffic, and has the play yard in the back. Just once you have those components that have to be part of this, along with all of the exit doors, it constrains what sites are even possible to develop on.
Configuring an existing building because of the fire safety codes.
Yeah.
It changes everything because now it's a different use group. So other code applications come in that aren't typically.
This will be a new build. This is just a parcel.
Right.
Okay,
So this will be a new build. So yeah, that's going to be part of it. But when you start reconfiguring existing properties or existing spaces, it's like remodeling your house. It starts, the cost just
It's
starts.
just like a daycare going in town center is probably not very likely because it's just not going to work. But then that same it's not going to work phenomenon happens in these multi-tenant buildings that may be in industrial districts.
So in short, the question that I'm asking, in the existing zones where it's permitted, there's just limited opportunity? That's why we would have to open this
Yeah.
up? I mean, that's
Yeah,
basically
there's-
what we're wrestling with right now?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. There's limited opportunity. I think also the shortage of daycare spots is also related to lack of employees.
Right.
So that's the one kind of information we haven't gotten at is, well, if there were more employees at a couple of these facilities, then would spaces free up? I don't think that's the case in Twinsburg. I think maybe nationwide you have some lack of workforce at these facilities. I don't think that's the case here locally.
That's not a zoning issue. It doesn't matter.
Not a
Yeah,
zoning
right.
issue. It's just when we're talking about the lack of child daycare openings, I think part of it, the bigger picture is lack of employees in addition to lack of facilities.
Right.
Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if we waited to hear what the applicant what their building would look like if they'd be willing to accommodate some of our conditions. I don't know how that changes anything. I mean, we're still putting a daycare center in an area with a conditional use permit. So I don't know why we would wait personally for that. When they come forward, we can tell them what the conditions are. I guess that maybe that's the part I don't know, is like how much strength or teeth do we have on a condition? Like you said, they may go to litigation to argue some of the conditions that we put on them. It sounded like you alluded to. Is that true, or do we have more? I guess that's probably probably the answer. If we have teeth enough to put a condition and don't allow something to go in like the corner of the square or something, then I feel okay to add it. But if we feel like we would get painted in a corner and litigated to the nth degree to force it to go anywhere in C5, then I feel a little nervous about it.
I think with good design standards and being able to control the form, as was said, I think we can propose things that are within reason. We're a litigious society. Anybody could sue about anything, but if we have good design principles and reasons for what we're doing, that's all we can do. And if they don't agree with us, then the consequences are what they are.
Sound like an architect.
Thank you.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean,
If that, and from that kind of view and standpoint, if it's like, if we think it's a good idea and the site makes sense, then we go forward with a recommendation and we use our design standards and our common sense in dictating how these projects should move forward, both theirs and if there's anything in the future.
Here's how I think this is going to play out, if it were to move forward. Pursuant to the contract that we've got drafted, nothing is going to happen on the transaction until there's voter approval. Okay, so we have to get to November, have to get voter approval. That's a big contingency. From then, they start their due diligence period. So I would expect that during that due diligence period, which runs for 90 days with potential for 60-day extensions, that's when I think they would be, the developer, would be having the conversations with you about how this is all going to work. And here, I think the sense we get from them is that they want to be in Twinsburg. This isn't, they've looked at other places in Twinsburg. They want to be in Twinsburg, and they think this is the best site. So that's what they tell us. I get the sense that they are dead serious about this. The way they've negotiated, I can tell. Anyway, so my point is that I think that there will be a pretty good, conversation with you at the beginning of next year about how this should look. And if it doesn't work out, and if they feel that your conditions are something they just can't meet or don't want to meet, then off they go. And it didn't cost them anything, and it just cost us an awful lot of time with our property off the market.
But I think it would behoove you to make them aware of the things that we discussed tonight, so that they know what we're looking for, because in their mind, they may have the design for that site and it may not work with what we're thinking.
Trust me, our brokers, the brokers that are working on this deal, talk about every day, and they're going to want to know
What happened
tonight. So, yeah.
That's how those brokers are.
Yeah. Right, they've got money in it.
Yeah. Michael?
So I think about when we have the Starbucks discussion, and I'm young, and I've not been here as long as you guys, and I respect the need of kind of shaping the vision, but they never came back. I don't know why. I don't mind getting more data.
Oh, why did Starbucks not come back? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I'm thinking because the attorney for the bank
there was
said no.
I didn't know why there was the heel cooling. But I don't want us to get into a posture where you're asking for specific data, and I understand where you're coming from, and you're also making sure we're trying to shape the vision where things are. If we wait, do you suspect, and I think the answer is going to be no, do you suspect some serious heel cooling if we say, come back?
No, what I expect is that they're going to want to know with some specificity what you want to hear. In other words, what do you want them to tell you that will sort of, address the concerns that you have without, I don't know that they're in a position at this stage also of being able to make all kinds of promises, because I don't know that they have, a site plan yet. I doubt that they do if they haven't actually bought it. But
For me personally, it's that they understand the conditions that I would like to see put on this would be the no curb cut on 82 with the shared access, that there'd be no parking in the front yard. Or, the idea is that it's the idea of developing a streetscape, and that all their parking and drop-offs and vehicular movements would need to occur on the side or the back of the property.
I guess it makes it a question of how, and I don't know about the depth of this property, but I guess it has to be deep enough that they can have their egress off of the driveway, and then have their parking and still have their play area to the back.
Pretty, it is well
Yeah.
beyond the median
In terms of,
to the back lot line. It's pretty deep.
yeah, well, I'm happy to represent that that's, the feeling of the commission, that that's what, the kind of thing you're going to want to see on a site plan. Yeah. What would you like from them? Just an acknowledgement that they understand that, or do you, are you looking for some of their preliminary thoughts about how this would,
Well, obviously, we're just looking at a rezoning, and we're not
Yeah,
looking at
right.
a site plan specific.
Correct.
But I think it's an acknowledgement from them that they understand the kind of design principles and that the city's interested in this district, and could specifically list those that if they were to get the approval, move forward, that they would understand that those need to be implemented in their future design.
gotcha.
Because I don't expect them to do a site plan layout and design now, but they may have as a corporate entity a prototype, and they like to plug it in
Yeah,
to whatever lot.
might
and
be
that,
right.
that might not work with what we're looking at doing.
Right.
And then it becomes a moot point.
Understood.
So are we under an agreement that we would prefer to table it at this time and give them the opportunity to come back in May with additional information?
I'd prefer going forward with it, because I think if we're doing a conditional use, we have the teeth at that point. I'm not sure how it's going to change my view, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I think we got, if I could vote to put it toward the ballot now, because if we do anything well on this, and you do a great job of Mr. Chairman, is communicating potential expectations. We're not ready for 30% yet, but we can kind of provide some 5 and 10, and I think you've done that. I'm really not worried about, well, what if all these people come in? Because honestly, if people were going to try to come in, they would have done it earlier. And if folks are coming in that they're going to fight us, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to be as polished as this gentleman is here with having the information put together. I do the same thing. People say something about me, but they don't say that about me. I'm not worried about we're going to get hit with a make the city broke lawsuit.
Yeah.
I think that's bad thinking. But I'm equally fine with going with your proposal, but I'm like Mr. Shipley's. I'm going to change my mind.
So, gentlemen, we've got 2 on this side. What are your thoughts? Wait, or you could support, even if we support it and we make the motion, I would still recommend that you would discuss and
Well, I'm
have
gonna
them
do that
and
either
have,
way.
and have them submit something
Sure.
to us so that we
I will.
know that we're still not wasting our time.
Well, and that's the thing here. We don't have the owner proposing a child daycare.
Right.
We have a potential child daycare with an option to purchase that can walk away from our conditions.
Right.
So if we did wait and wanted more information, are we still have the timeline for November elections? Is that still in play, or does that,
Yeah.
so we don't lose that?
Correct. That's critical in this decision for me. If we wait, that we're not killing the deal.
Right.
I'm fine with moving forward. I mean, it's gotta go, council's gotta pass it. I mean, we're just recommending.
That's true. And that would even, that's true, that would also behoove me even more so, because, yes, right, we're not approving it, we're just
Right.
recommending to them.
I understand that.
That would give you the opportunity to provide that same requested information, and if council doesn't get it, then they hopefully would see that that's a negative, and that would allow them to keep the ball moving forward, I guess.
Not to put you on a spot or speak for the group, but is this something council would support, or do you think there'll be pushback from some folks?
You know, I don't want to speak for everybody. I just know that there's a lot of conversation about the downtown development right now. It's like a hot topic item.
I mean, yeah, and I get
So
it. And there's some,
knowing that,
Yeah.
again, I don't think you're going to have 14 daycare centers opening up all around C5.
No.
I mean, we already have 4 or 5. Add this one, potential one on Greek side over there. I mean, how many can you have? I don't think, you know.
No, I
think they're
agree.
going to have 42 daycares.
It's funny, they said that about car washes in Foxborough, and now they had to
Right.
put a moratorium on.
You know, but I agree though. I think you do open up Pandora's box, and I think that I don't want to speak for council. I know that
no, I'm not, I didn't mean to put you on a spot,
no,
David.
me personally, you know, I don't think that there's a problem with having this type of thing there. I don't personally have a problem with it.
It's in a good site.
It's in a good site.
Of relative to the whole C5. It's
Correct.
just when we say yes, what does that mean? We'll
Right.
have to deal with.
And that's the
in
only
future.
concern with the future development. You know, what else? So is it specific language that it's only meant to be a daycare? Or what else could come in if you change the language?
Just a child
Just a
daycare. That's
daycare.
all we're adding.
Child
is-
daycare.
You're just adding that.
You're just adding that one extra
You know,
item to the list.
again, I don't think that you're gonna have all of C5. There's not that many places within C5 you could even do it.
No, and I'm not,
You know, that's what I was staring at the map. I'm like, all right, if I want to build a daycare, where could I do it? Well, this land is taken, this land's taken, this land. And like you said, you're only doing it in a place you're gonna want to do a new build. There aren't that many places anyway,
It
so.
would be somebody purchasing one of the old houses or one of the older properties and doing a tear down
Doing a
and
tear
building again, but being in a spot where we're like, yeah, that's really not what we want to see at that specific location.
And I also think if you have 6 daycares, someone's be like, I want to build another one. We already have 6, you know, I'm just.
Yeah.
well, and I think the configuration of C5 is gonna help police it a little bit, because there's some spots that they're gonna go, no, I can't make this site work. But the one that comes to mind, and that's why I brought it up, is the orthodontist site now has a new for sale sign on it. There was surveying, there were soil samples, now there's a for sale sign.
They are,
Which site?
they are moving forward with the orthodontics.
They just put up a brand new for sale sign.
I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Which
oh,
site?
the one on Darrow Road right at,
The next to Wilcox?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Now, if
In
I
front
was
of
gonna build a
Wilcox,
daycare
right.
center right next to the school, count me in.
Really?
And that site would
Two
work.
properties there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's, there's the large parcel on the opposite side, more towards the center behind the Huntington drive-through.
Yeah.
So there are some spots that I see that might be
Potential.
that may spur some. And I think adding this might also help kickstart some things, because if you're going to do commercial and residential, there might be the need, hey, this is convenient. I can have a place here, and I can drop my kid off on my way out the door.
I also think when you look at the heart of
Sidewalks on
downtown
there?
development, the heart of the downtown development is not,
No, that's not.
it's
gonna
not
work.
up north by the school there. It's
Yeah.
not, this is going a little bit, the heart is, the square. Even you're in a C2, not a C5. I mean, but
And that's what I meant by.
I don't, again, in the downtown, when everyone envisions of downtown, that's one of the conversations we want to have is what is the line of what we call downtown? I don't think it's going to be inundated down there with daycare.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's going to self-police this conditional use.
All right, so I think that after all of this good discussion, and it was good discussion.
It was,
think
I agree.
We need to do in the regular portion of the meeting, which is coming up momentarily. We'll be making a recommendation and see what happens.
Thank you.
You could have a seat, but I would say don't go too far.
Oh, all right.
Did you have any other questions or
I
comments?
do not, but do you want me to stay for?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
only going to be a few minutes.
Okay, fine.
You know, you'll be home by like 11 or 12 tonight. We never like to keep our applicants long.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gardner. Okay, so that takes care of the work session. So it's 8:05, and we're going to go into the regular meeting agenda. The first item is the approval of the March 20th, 2023 minutes. Are there any comments or corrections to those minutes?
Thanks for the excusal. I appreciate it.
Seeing none, the minutes will be accepted as submitted. Next item is the opportunity for public participation, members of the community to come forward and address the Planning Commission. Seeing none. Item 3 is the zoning text amendment for the guidelines for the driveway access construction. Lynn, is there anything else that we really need to share on this? It seems pretty...
It's pretty straightforward, nothing else.
All right, so I would like to make the following motion. I move that Planning Commission recommend approval to City Council Ordinance 44-2023, amending chapters 1174.05D and 1195.05D5L of the codified ordinances regarding driveway construction standards as submitted.
Second.
Second by Michael. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mr. Hogler,
Yes.
Mr. Shebeck.
Yes.
Recommend to City Council 5-0. The next item on the regular meeting agenda is the zoning text amendment for child daycare as a conditionally permitted use in the C5 Mixed Residence Business District. Mr. Gardner, come back forward. Is there anything else that you would like to share with council? Any final comments?
No final comments,
For
thank you.
Planning Commission, I should say. Ed, anything else for Steve?
No, I'm good.
Craig?
No.
Michael?
No, sir.
And I'd like to make the following motion. I move that Planning Commission make a positive recommendation to City Council for the zoning text amendment request, application dated March 27th, 2023, and the planner's report dated April 5th, 2023, to add child daycare facilities as a conditionally permitted use in the C5 Mixed Residence Business District.
Second.
Second by Steve. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Shebeck,
Yes.
Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hogler.
Yes.
Recommend to City Council 5-0. Thank you for walking through this with us.
Thank you for your time and your consideration. Appreciate it very much.
Be safe driving back in the rain, okay?
I hope it's not snowing.
No,
Communications and miscellaneous. David, anything to share?
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
Ed, anything?
No.
Steve?
I have nothing tonight.
Craig?
I guess we had that, was it called the rezoning committee or?
oh, right, the zoning code update committee, we had our first working group meeting.
Yeah. It was just more get to know each other more and just kind of lay out the format for it. But let's see where it evolves into what type of usages, we want to open up by I guess, adjusting the zoning laws. And that'll also come back to here for us to approve.
Correct. And so that survey that the working group spent some time on, that was posted on the city's Together Twinsburg page today.
So is there a next meeting scheduled for the committee?
It is. It's scheduled for, I believe, May 25th.
Okay.
So I attended it, and I guess I'll let you know as we meet what we talk about. I hope we get some preface to what comes before us.
We appreciate your serving on that, and we'll look forward to you keeping us up to date. Thank you. Michael?
I've talked enough, sir.
All right, I just
But I
want,
appreciate the help.
no problems. I just want to welcome back Steve, welcome Ed to Planning Commission. Hope you have as much fun as we hope to have.
Right.
Lynn, communications, what do we see on the horizon? Anything upcoming?
First, really great conversation and great job working through the child daycare application. That one had a couple layers to it, so I appreciate your efforts on that. I spoke with our applicant that had submitted the lot split and consolidation on Shepherd Road. She is not ready to return, had questioned whether or not she could reconfigure the properties to go around the well.
Is this the one that we discussed the meeting last?
Yeah.
You'd have no room to build a house if you go around the well.
So had that dialogue a couple days ago. I would expect to see her back with the easement in play. I spoke with the law director and let him know that the Ohio Administrative Code requires the easement that Planning Commission required. I also let the applicant know that. So that's where we are, still requiring the easement.
Anything else besides that item? Without that, are you saying at the moment we have nothing happening on the 15th?
There's a couple bigger things happening, but nothing that's been submitted as an official application.
All right, so basically hold tight and keep your eyes open for an email from Tina letting us know whether or not we have a
Right.
meeting
Right,
on May 15th.
exactly.
I have one thing. I will be gone. That I have a business trip that
For the next,
15th,
okay.
so I won't be. I'll be in Seattle, Washington.
I got you covered. You looked out for me.
All right.
That's good. Thank you for letting us know. Nothing else, Lynn?
That's it.
All right, then 8:12 adjournment.